It's time for another edition of Lewis at Large, 60 minutes of smart talk radio featuring guests from all walks of life in conversation with your host, Warner Lewis. So sit back and lend us your ears for the next hour. Now here with today's first guest is the host of Lewis at Large, Warner Lewis.
Well, welcome everybody to another edition of Lewis at Large. Yours truly, Warner Lewis from the flight deck. And of course, as always, that means some smart talk radio is in your future, and this segment is certainly no exception. We are extraordinarily pleased to have the infamous American and Canadian icon, Rich Little, the master of mimic of more than 200 voices, to join us. A work release called Little by Little, released a little bit earlier this year, and he doesn't need much of an introduction, but as you all know, he is originally from Canada. He has done all kinds of voices for all kinds of people. Star of television, stage, radio, you name it. Rich, how are you, my friend?
I'm fine. I'm still alive.
Yeah, every day above the ground is a pretty good day, right? But
well, when people haven't seen you for a long time, it's so funny. I'm working at the Tropicana here in Las Vegas 5 nights a week, and people say the craziest things when they come and see me. And the other night somebody said, yeah, the wife and I wanted to come and see you before you died. I said, well, it's kind of hard to see me after I'm dead, but thank you.
Compliments come in a lot of different ways, I'm sure. But
I get a lot of strange things said to me, but most of them are nice. Well, people remember me. You have to be a certain age. Young people don't know who I am at all. But
that's
if
actually,
you grew up in the era of the great variety shows and the great stars, that we no longer have, then you'll remember me.
Well, you're a baby boomer of note. Again, you're from Ottawa, Canada.
That's right.
I understand that one of the ways that you really kind of got started on your own was in school. You would mimic your teachers, and I'm curious as to what was their reaction when you would mimic their own voices back to them.
Well, I knew this was going to be my lifetime work because it wasn't long before the teachers were charging a 2-drink minimum and a cover charge class. I did all my teachers, though. I really did. I should have got their signatures down. I would have got better marks, but I did their voices instead. And when they would ask me a question in class, I would answer them in their voice. Can you imagine hearing the wrong answer in the teacher's voice?
Oh, my God. Yeah, I can imagine you did some extra homework and spent some time after school from time to time. But
yeah. Well, you see, that's when I started to think about doing impressions seriously, because the kids loved it when I did the teachers. I mean, they would have a lookout at the door, and then I would do the teacher and do all the mannerisms and the sayings and everything. And then the teacher would come along, and I'd take my seat. And when the teacher would start talking, everybody would laugh. So the teacher couldn't figure out why they were so funny.
You mentioned something that I actually did want to explore, and I'm so excited we have this opportunity to talk to you, is the great variety shows, the shows that helped, not necessarily launch you, but certainly took you to a wide audience. Ed Sullivan amongst those, and many, many others. I'm curious, could you have created a career and done a career in the days of radio only, do you believe?
Probably, because it was easier in radio because you didn't have to look like the person. You did that in your mind.
Right.
Probably. I don't know whether I would have been that successful, but I love radio. And I started out as a disc jockey, in Canada. And, what they're paid, so I dropped that.
Real quick, really, yeah. This isn't going to work. I understand that one. Well, Rich, here's kind of another thing. You alluded again to those that remember you. Is it just me? And again, as a baby boomer myself, or are there young people trying to be impressionists and doing the same kind of career that you did? From where I sit, I don't see them coming along the way they used to. Do you agree with that, or what do you think?
Oh, yeah. No, I do agree with you on that. There are a lot of comics. I work at the Tropicana, as I said, and right after me they have a comedy show every night. So I see a lot of the young comics, and sometimes they're great, and sometimes they're just pitiful. But I commend them for getting up there. But the only thing is that a lot of them don't have an act, and that always surprises me because I don't know how you can wander on stage and hope to get lucky with "Hi, where are you from?" and "Is this your wife?" and you got to have structure. You got to know where you're going, and it's amazing the number of comics that really don't work at their craft. And, and a lot of them are blue. I mean, that's the way they are today.
Yeah.
Very blue, very blue. There's no restrictions now on anything. Even commercial television now is very blue. Some of these roasts they're doing today just aren't the same as the Dean Martin roast at all.
Right.
Yeah, they're pretty cruel, actually.
Yeah. I have a question for you. You did lots, obviously you're doing impressions of a lot of famous people at the time, whether it's Schwarzenegger or Kermit the Frog. You did Sylvester. You did all the presidents and all that. I'm curious today, do you think some of this shying away from impressionism is, first of all, it's work. Second of all, is there a sort of a political correctness or a fear of offending people or offending the particular celebrity or the political figure? What do you think about that?
Well, if you do the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which I've done, and it was not a great venue for me because if you're too political and you take jabs at the president who's sitting there, then you're disrespectful. But if you don't, then you're just not funny and you have no guts, And the other thing about the Correspondents' Dinner is a lot of people don't even listen. They don't even watch. I had people when I was there that were sitting in the back that didn't even know I was there. So you got to be careful when you do a president in front of them. I can remember. Because I entertained at the White House a lot when Reagan was president. I mean, a lot. And Reagan and I got along great. But Reagan was fine. But people around him were always saying, "Rich, what are you going to say? Can we see some of your material and everything?" And Reagan would always say, "Leave him alone. It'll be fine. Don't bother him." So that was great that Reagan trusted me like that because he knew that I would just do it in fun. I wasn't going to make a point politically and embarrass anybody, But some people do. Some people do.
So from where you sit, the key was doing the impression and getting them spot on, but really not tackle the political issues and really just more talking about the person themselves.
No, you're right. I am mostly politicians saying silly things, And I did that with the teachers, too. When you have people of authority that you looked up to, and you brought them down to your level, and had them say kind of goofy things. People love that, And I remember one of the jokes I did with Reagan was, we're looking into new sources of energy, and I propose that we build a pipeline to the sun because that's the greatest source of energy of all time. And then a reporter said, "Build a pipeline to the sun? Good Lord, you can't do that. You'd be burnt up before you got it halfway there." "Yes, we realize that, and we're going to work at night." Now, that's pretty corny, actually, but right. Reagan loved that. He said to me when I did that, he said, Can I use that?" And I said, "Sure, well, of course. I'll try that out on Gorbachev."
Well,
he had a great sense of humor. Reagan did. He thought like a comedian. He really did. I mean, it was amazing.
Well, maybe some of that was his acting background. He appreciated the performing arts. Sure.
Yeah. I once said to him, I read somewhere that you were the first choice to play the lead in Casablanca. I read this, and I said to him, "Is that true?" You know what he said to me?
What?
He said, No, that's not true. They all along wanted to go with Ingrid Bergman." See, he thought like a comic.
Yeah.
He was like talking to Bob Hope or Don Rickles. He was very funny. Bush was funny too. Senior was funny too. But some presidents, Richard Nixon had no sense of humor at all.
I did want to ask you about that. When you were doing a fire starter, so to speak, and particularly in that politically charged era when Nixon during the administration, that you had to walk. I would think you'd have to be a little bit ginger with that one.
Well, he had so many problems, so he almost wrote the material for me. That was a great time, and I once did Nixon in front of him. I once did Nixon down in San Clemente at a party I was invited to, and I did Nixon right in front of him. And as I'm doing him, he turned to his wife Pat and said, "Why is this young man speaking in this strange voice?" He didn't know I was doing him. I mean, it was very embarrassing, And I thought I did him quite well because when I left that party, his wife Pat went with me. So, not really.
You're more him than him. Is it, again, if you just joined us, yours truly, Warner Lewis, for the flight deck of Lewis at Large Radio, talking to a comedic icon. Rich Little does, more than 200. I bet you do 300 or 400 probably by yourself. But
no, I do close to 200. But,
wow.
This label, Man of 1,000 Voices, is a bit ridiculous because nobody does 1,000 voices,
That's a little much. What about
a little much?
Rich, is it tough to do someone from a different country or a different race? I know you do Obama, but is that a little bit tougher, or do you steer away from that, or do you like the challenge?
No, I can do English accents pretty good. Spent a lot of time in England. I did a series over there called Copycat. So I've been to England. I've performed for the Queen, and the English accent was never hard for me. That's why I imitated people like James Mason, and Richard Burton, and a lot of those English actors were great for me. But it was funny when I went over to England and did impressions in England. They didn't want to hear English actors. They wanted to hear American actors. Isn't that interesting? They wanted to hear John Wayne and Jimmy Stewart and Gregory Peck.
Have you perfected Donald Trump yet?
A lot of people ask me if I can do Donald Trump. Let me think. Well, I'm working on it. It's getting better. We're going to build a wall. We're going to build a wall. Not a door, not a window, a wall. And we're going to put toll booths in the tunnels they're digging under the wall. It's got kind of a raspy voice, but it's a little difficult to do. It's easy to look like Donald Trump. A lot of people can do them. Alec Baldwin does them well. Just paint your face red and put a beaver on your head, But the voice is a little tricky, but it's coming. The more I hear them, the better it gets.
Yeah. So again, it probably varies, I would think, from character to character. But just real quickly, and we certainly want to talk about little by little, but share with our Lewis at Large listeners, if you would, the process you go through in perfecting a character or working on a character. I'm assuming it's maybe just watching them, or some of it's just made up on your own. Tell us about that process.
Well, in the old days, I used to put it on tape and then play it over and over. Maybe pick a phrase. That's the best way to start. If you can get something like, "Go ahead, make my day," or "Hasta la vista, baby," those kind of things are great.
Yeah.
And, with Donald Trump, it's, "You're going to build a wall," you have to pick some kind of a phrase. And then what you have to do is, this is hard to explain, but you have to hear the voice in your head. And before even you speak, you can sort of, you can hear it in your head. It's hard to explain, but and then you have to concentrate on certain inflections and body movements and and things like that. And if you could look like somebody, well, it helps it a lot, But it's hard to look like Donald Trump. But some people I can look more like Jack Benny and George Burns and Jack Lemmon, Johnny Carson. Those were good voices for me because I could kind of look like them,
Yeah, understood. What about? I was reading that you became finally an American citizen in January 2010. And any particular reason why then? Because you've been obviously on top of your field for so long and been here for a while. Tell us about that.
Well, I'm very grateful to the United States. I mean, they made my career. I mean, I did well in Canada, but after I did the Judy Garland show, my career really took off. So I'm very grateful to this country, and I thought it was about time I became an American citizen. Although I've got dual citizenship, I'm half Canadian, half American, but. It's interesting because I was sworn in as John Wayne. The judge that swore me in asked me if I would take the Pledge of Allegiance as John Wayne in the courthouse, and I did. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, Pilgrim. It was funny, actually, to do that. I said to them after, I said, does that mean I'm now an American citizen, or is John Wayne an American citizen?
Well, sadly, your wife passed away that same year, but in her honor, the Marie and Rich Little Foundation was created. And again, share. I don't know that our listeners are terribly familiar with that. Please share with us a little bit about that mission.
Well, my late wife was really interested in animals and children and a lot of charities, homeless particularly. We did a lot of things for homeless people here in Vegas, like they need sleeping bags and water and socks and underwear. And she was really involved in that. And we used to do that at least twice a year. And that was great because she was such a giving person, and to lose her so early in life. But she was a saint. She really was. And that's when we formed the Rich Little Foundation. And it's still going strong. And my interest now is the troops. After my show's over at the Trop, I sell a lot of tapes and a lot of drawings that I do because I'm an artist, and my books, and the money goes to the Gary Sinise Foundation for the troops, and that's very rewarding. It really is.
Yeah, I don't doubt that a bit. Let's talk a little bit just for a second here before we talk about little by little about the illustrations that you do. Was that always a vocation of yours, or is that something that came along a little bit later?
Yeah, I started drawing before I did impressions, and I've done hundreds and hundreds of portraits over the years. So the show I'm doing now at the Trop is sort of a history of my life in show business. I show a lot of clips of me with George Burns, with Dean Martin, with Frank Sinatra, with John Wayne. And then I show a lot of my artwork, and then I sort of take the audience through kind of a trip of my career, and it's kind of fun to do. I'm really enjoying it. I've been there for over a year, and it's great. It's just great. Keeps me off the road, and so I just have to drive down to the Trop. It takes me half an hour, and I'm loving it. It's great.
Yeah, I don't doubt that. I'm curious again as to Little by Little, the work that was released in August of 2016. As you describe it, it's not really a biography. It's really just more sort of loaded with anecdotes and stories about some things that happened to you along the way. Doing in the work that you do, you are imitating some of the most famous people that have ever walked the earth. Did that allow you a closer connection with them? And I'm curious if, when you met some of these people, did any of your impressions or your opinions of them, and so therefore possibly your impressions, change as a result of meeting them and knowing them personally?
Oh, yeah, because the ones you like best, you imitate the best. That's why I think Jimmy Stewart's one of my best. I got to know Jimmy quite well. And Reagan, of course, I got to know him very well. Other people, I did a lot of those roasts. I think I was on the roast more than anybody. I did 24, those Dean Martin roasts. I think I was on so much because if I could imitate 5 people on the dais, they would put me on the show, because they love to cut away. When I would do George Burns, they'd cut away for George's reaction, and then they'd cut away for Johnny Carson's reaction, and that always was fun. The only one who ever really didn't like my impression was Paul Lynde. Remember Paul Lynde from Hollywood Squares?
Yep, Northwestern University grad, as a matter of fact.
Well, he hated my impression. I mean, really hated it. Oh, yeah.
Did he hate it because it wasn't
like on a Dean Martin roast or Hollywood Squares, and they'd cut to him, and he'd go, who's he doing? Who's that? I'll get a day job. That stinks.
So it wasn't he didn't like the material. He just didn't think you had him down pat, huh?
Maybe he thought I exaggerated him too much. I made him too feminine. I don't know. He was a strange guy. Paul was very, very funny.
Yeah.
I mean, his one-liners. I mean, you would fall out of the square sometimes because he was funny, but he was his own worst enemy. Mm-hmm. He just wasn't a happy man.
Yeah. You could tell he was pretty intense. For sure.
Well, sometimes after the lunch break, they'd have to strap him into the chair, into the square, because he was so bombed. But he was still funny.
Yeah.
You'd say to yourself, "Oh my God!" They asked him a question, he can't even keep his head up, and yet he was funny. Peter Marshall would say, "Paul, can you get an elephant drunk?" And Paul would say, "Oh, sure, but you'll never get it up to your apartment." He was always funny, drunk or sober. He was funny, but he just was not a pleasant person.
Is there anybody in particular that you have always wanted to do, but for whatever reason, your impression isn't up to your standards?
Angelique Jolie. I'd love to be able to do her. Brad Pitt doesn't anymore, so
Right.
But no, I don't know. There's a lot of film stars today that you can't impersonate. How would you do Brad Pitt, or how would you do George Clooney, or Matt Damon, or Ben Affleck? How would you do these people? I think that's impossible. They just don't have distinctive voices.
Did you have I would assume it's the stage, but did you tell us about your love affair with or against television and something recorded versus live in front of a live audience?
Well, I love performing in front of a live audience. Yeah. You get that instant reaction. When you do TV, there's the cameraman, and once in a while they have an audience, but mostly it was pretty cold. And then, of course, they put canned laughter in, which always bugged me. I don't like a lot of these situation comedies where they put this canned laughter in when nothing's funny. And I never liked that. Even when I had my own show back in the 70s, I used to sit there and say, "That's not funny. Don't put a laugh in there." Jeez. Morning pop, big laugh, right? Yeah. Don't put a laugh in there. Yeah. That if you see a comedy in a movie house, a comedy, there's no laugh track,
Right. Well, let's talk again, little by little. Was that a lifetime in the making? But in terms of when you started the work and when it was done, tell us about what all went into it.
Went into what? Putting a show together?
Well, putting the book together.
Oh, putting the book together. Yeah. Well, I was fortunate because, sometimes I would come home from working with a celebrity and put something in a little diary, a few lines of something funny that happened. So when I wrote the book, I could go back to that and remember it because I'd written it down. So that helped a lot, and a lot of funny things did happen. Oh my gosh, with so many of these people I worked with. I once showed John Wayne how to do his walk right in front of him, and everybody gathered around, and I did John Wayne's walk for him, and he looked at me and he said, "Well, hell, I've been walking like Loretta Young for 50 years." Things like that were funny. I would write that down. And then I talk in the book about Johnny Carson. I talk about Dean, Frank Sinatra, Orson Welles, Bing Crosby. I mean, a lot of people, presidents. Jimmy Carter. I once sang "Happy Birthday" when it was Jimmy Carter's birthday, and sang "Happy Birthday" to him as Jimmy Carter. Happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday to me. Happy birthday, President Carter. Happy birthday to me. And then he laughed, and I said, now, wasn't that prettier than Marilyn Monroe? She's got a big laugh.
What, again, just in general, is it easier for you to come up for material for the politicians that you do or the other celebrities that are not in the political business?
Well, it's easier to probably do politicians because they're seen so much on television. The president certainly is, and so long as they're visible and you can hear them, they're good subjects. A lot of film actors, a lot of character actors, I imitate, but people don't remember them as well. So you have to pick people that are visual, and it helps, if they're popular. And I don't do Spiro Agnew anymore, or George McGovern anymore, or Hubert Humphrey anymore, but
right.
I can still do them. But I guess Hillary will kind of fade away, and not that I could imitate her. But that would have been interesting if she got in. I would have had a tough time there.
Have you done any female impressions?
Oh, yeah. I do Carol Channing, and I do Jean Stapleton from All in the Family, and I do Katharine Hepburn. And I do Carol Channing, too. Carol Channing. Oh, I just adore Carol Channing. Do you know that Carol is going to be 95 years old? She is. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
She's 95.
Yeah, it is amazing. Well,
but she's gone blind, unfortunately. But she's still with us.
Well, Rich, as we kind of start to wind down here again, tell us a little bit. You're currently also doing a live version, or again the stage version of Little by Little. Is that correct?
Well, I don't know whether it's called Little by Little. They for some reason at the Trop they wanted to call my show Rich Little Live in Las Vegas, and I questioned that. Rich Little Dead in Las Vegas. Anyway, that's the name of the show, which they wanted. So, it's just as I said, it's just kind of a mini history of my career in show business. That's what it is. And the book is called Little by Little People I've Known and Been, which you can get on Amazon.com if they haven't got it in the store.
Rich, do you have a website, a website people can go to as well?
Oh, yeah, richlittle.com, yeah.
Loving it. So,
richlittle.com, yeah.
You only get asked this probably every day. How much longer do you want to do this? You want to do it forever?
Well, I think as long as you have your health,
yeah.
I mean, that's the main thing, I look at Don Rickles now, who's still performing, but he can't walk, can't stand up. And that's tough for Don because a lot of Don was walking and back and forth and attacking. And that's kind of sad. But, we all get older and there's nothing we can do about it. But so long as I've got my health and so long as people, react to what I do, I'll keep performing.
Rich,
and then when I don't, I'll go back to Canada and, I don't know.
What does Rich Little do in his spare time? What do you enjoy doing besides this?
I love tennis. I play a little bit, and not great, but I love tennis, and I watch. I really like dramatic things. I like movies that are dramatic. It's funny. I'm a comedian, but I don't really go to many comedy shows. I like more dramatic things. I think that's because I started my career doing stage plays and doing things like Bus Stop and a lot of heavier things, and I did a lot of plays when I was younger, Desperate Hours and things like that,
The heavyweight stuff, indeed. Well, what a joy. The work, again, is called Little by Little, released last August, but available pretty much everywhere. There's also, be sure and check out richlittle.com, a Canadian icon, American icon, Rich Little, and he is live at the Tropicana, and we hope he stays live at the Tropicana. And
Me too.
We'll tell you what, would you come back and join us again? We'd love to have you on again.
Oh, yeah, really. Well, I'm not coming up there now. It's too cold.
Yeah, indeed it
you know.
is. Well, listen.
How cold is it?
Yeah. Well, we can't say it on radio.
What's one of the main streets that you have in your city?
Massachusetts Street.
It was so cold. An exhibitionist came up to me on Massachusetts Street and had to describe himself to me.
Oh, and on that note, we will be back with more on Lewis at Large right after this.